Hey, what's up? This is Jake, and today I'm going to go over why colleges have it wrong and other misnomers. So this was um, kind of coming is a long time coming, but I do career coaching on the side with people who are looking to get into IT or with people who want to career switch into IT, and I think that there's a lot of things out there on the internet, and that you're going to get marketed through you through social media or through the mail that tell you the way something is, and it's not that way. And career counselors in colleges are completely out of touch with the way that IT is now. It's not even close to the same to the way that it was 2 years ago. And a lot of IT people have a hard time keeping up with it. So I can only imagine how far out of touch universities are. And I'm not saying that to bash on them. I'm saying that you got to know your strengths and your weaknesses and admit that like you have a knowledge gap. And I think that there's a huge knowledge gap and people are getting really bad advice. So I'm here to try to give you some good advice and hopefully this helps. So, what do colleges have wrong? Well, I'll tell you why should you listen to me. I am a developer at a top five tech company. I came into IT without a degree and I managed to get here. So if I can do it, maybe you can too. You have to have the drive to do it and you have to be a, self-motivated, uh, you know, self-taught kind of lifelong learner type of person to do this. It's not for the weak, that is for sure. It is difficult. I started out getting a degree in a non-IT field and haven't really used it a lot. I've used it for interpersonal things. I have a business degree, but more so, I have used the things I've learned along the way and other methods of learning that have done the majority of the work in helping me get where I am. So, um, let's start in this. So, the first thing is degrees make you marketable. Degrees do not make you more marketable just on the face value of having them in IT. Okay. I was able to get a job that requires a degree in IT and computer science, and I did not have one. And I was chosen over people that did. So, does it make you more marketable? As a blanket statement, no. Can it? Sure. Does it can you promise that? No, absolutely not. Would I spend $50,000 in 3 years of my life to work on something only to find out whether or not that was true? No, that seems like a silly thing to do. So, what makes you marketable? Well, what makes you marketable? You make yourself marketable. You need to find out what makes you attractive to other companies and why they would hire you. And if you can answer that question and you can answer it well, then that makes you marketable. Now, the other side of that is differentiation. So, the other argument you'll hear from career counselors and enrollment counselors and admissions counselors and all those people, which, by the way, I used to work at a university, so I know how all this works as well, is that degrees can differentiate you. Also, not true. Um, if you're going into IT and a degree is required, well, then everybody has one. So, how does that differentiate you? Well, if you get a master's degree, that differentiates you from the people with a bachelor's degree. Not really. Like it's just a base level requirement. It's not the most important requirement. The most important requirement is that you have the tool set that somebody's looking for, right? So if I'm really good at AWS cloud engineering, but a job requires me to be Azure knowledgeable, I'm not gonna do well in that interview because I don't know anything about Azure. So having a degree, having a master's degree, and no knowledge of the cloud that the company works on, how is that going to differentiate? How is that going to help? It's not. You have to have the skills required for the job you're looking to get. And then we're going to get into that. I'm going to do a whole video on how to do that. So the next thing is that it increases your salary. Um, Again, no one can promise you that the day you graduate, your salary is going to increase, or that 3 months after, or 3 years after, that your salary is going to increase. Your salary is going to increase because you want it to increase. And that sounds kind of like, well, everybody wants their salary to increase. Okay, well, do they? They might say that, but do they put in the effort? Do they put in the time? Do they learn the skills? Do they learn the tools? No, they don't, because 90% of the people I talk to that come to me for help, They get the same advice I give every single other person, but only 10% of them actually follow that advice. So, I mean, if you have the skills and you know what the skills are worth, then you know your value. And if you know your value and you know your worth, then you just don't take a job somewhere unless somebody's willing to compensate you for whatever that is. That has nothing to do with getting a degree. It has everything to do with confidence. It has everything to do with strategy of going through the job hunting process, and it has everything to do with just being able to figure out what people are looking for and then go get what it is people are looking for. If somebody's looking for somebody who's really good at Terraform and I don't know Terraform, I'm going to go learn Terraform. And then I can go into that interview and be like, yeah, I know Terraform. And if you need somebody that knows Terraform, that's going to cost you. That's really it. It has nothing to do with your degree. Now, the other thing I see is people getting master's degrees with a bachelor's degree in something unrelated. That's fine. That's something you can do. You're going to learn a much higher level. You're not going to get into the computer science or computer architecture or networking or programming in C sharp or whatever it is that people are doing nowadays. It's not like that. And a lot of career switchers want to get a degree. And like, let's take myself for example, because I tried this. I had a bachelor's degree in business, but I wanted to get into IT, so I was going to get a master's degree in IT. That's fine, but I have no experience. And so what you end up with is this lopsided set of skills where you have a lot of education and you have no experience. And actually, that's actually a huge red flag. So I would definitely not get a master's degree in technology if you've never worked in technology, because a master's degree is going to cost you 30 to 50, $60,000, and it's going to take 3 years. Well, you could take 3 weeks or 3 months and pay $18 for a Udemy course, get a certification in something, and the cert exam would cost you like 50 to $100, and then you can start getting your entry level job with a capital expenditure of 150 $168, $118, or whatever it costs you, and do it in a small fraction of the time. So and that's not going to give any red flags. You're going to be seen as an entry level person. You're going to get an entry level job. And if you want to get a master's degree after that, hey, go for it. But I mean, that's up to you. It's absolutely not required. There are very few jobs that say, oh, you have to have a master's degree to work in this. It may be preferred, but it's all comes down to the interview. And if you have the knowledge, the skills, the experience, and you can speak to the points that the people are doing and solve the problems that the business has, that's what's going to get you a job. So again, that comes to balancing your education and experience. And I just think that an entry level job, trying to get into that with a master's degree is proof that you know something, is a really bad idea. And it's also a very expensive idea. The other thing schools will tell you is just to go get some certifications. And they usually tell you like a few months before graduation. If you're lucky, you'll get a professor that gives you some good advice along the way, but it's definitely not part of the curriculum. A lot of the career counseling offices will will give you a sheet with some certifications on it you can look into. Some are better than others, but by and large, what I hear from multiple universities I've done guest lectures at is that you can just go get an A plus or a network plus or a security plus certification with your degree, and then that'll make you really marketable. Ain't wrong. No, I don't think so. So first of all, IT's changed a lot, and if you're not starting out learning in the cloud, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. So uh, if you're going to get any certifications, I would look into anything related to the cloud first, and then also anything lower level. Don't start with A plus. Start with Linux. Start with networking. Start with other stuff. I'm gonna get into that in a sec. Because it's not covered. The colleges, they cover theory, design, architecture. They don't cover the how, right? And that's, if you're doing entry level, you're going to be hands on a keyboard doing the grunt work at the very bottom. You're not going to be designing anything. So if you don't know how to SSH into a server or RDP into a server, and I'm saying Linux here, I'm not leaving out Windows because I don't think it's important, but the vast majority of shops, especially in the cloud, are usually running Linux. So you're better off, law of large numbers, to learn Linux because you're more likely to find a greater number of jobs if you're trying to get into something. So by learning the cloud and learning Linux and learning TCP/IP networking stuff, just basics, right? You don't need to be a network plus person. Nobody's asking you to memorize every cable that's required and all the different pin configurations for an RJ45 jack. Like it's not necessary. It's absolutely not necessary. Now, 10 years ago, 20, yeah, sure, that's probably something you'd see a lot on a job post. But if you go on LinkedIn and go search jobs for whatever job title it is that you want, and just go look at the job requirements, I mean, I could count. I guarantee you, I'll take the Pepsi challenge that you're going to find far more value in getting other certifications than CompTIA. So as far as Linux and networking goes, that should be one of the foundational things you do first, along with the cloud. The curriculum in universities, especially in those master's degrees that are everybody's marketing online, they don't cover any Linux administration. They don't cover TCP/IP networking stuff at all. And if you don't know it, I don't know how you're going to work in security or cloud or architecture without understanding how any of that works. Okay, you're just going to embarrass yourself. So, and then I kind of spoke to the architecture thing just now, but like schools also have like this affinity at the graduate level, probably because it's easier to build a curriculum and then sell it, that teaching architecture, design, compliance, auditing, all that stuff is a lot easier to do because it's not nearly as complex. And architecture, all this stuff can be very complex, but it's complex when it gets in the weeds. But you're not getting into the weeds. Going back to the whole Linux networking conversation, you're just talking about the high level of creating a secure network or something like that. And it's like, you're not talking about, they're not doing packet captures. They're not, doing all this other stuff hands on. They don't know any of the commands for it. They don't know how a VPN works. They don't know anything about AES 256 or RSA or envelope encryption or any of that other stuff. They're not teaching you any of that. They're just going to teach you, hey, this tool and you should scan ports and make sure they're closed. And here's a checklist. And you have this tool that scans a report back. And then you need to make sure that it's green or that there's a zero or, whatever. And that's just not the real world, right? And you're certainly not going to get a high paying job if all you're doing is taking a tool and hit scan every hour or every day and have it send you a report in your email and you set up a meeting to harass people about it. I've worked with people like that. They don't last long and they certainly don't have the respect of the IT team. So if you're a career switcher or you're looking at getting started, as a young person, don't start in architecture, don't start in compliance and audit. A huge portion of degrees do focus on that, not undergraduate degrees. I'm talking about graduate level degrees. So I would stay away from that. If and it's not even if the curriculum says that. Just assume that's what it is because at the grad level, they're assuming you did all this other stuff in the undergrad or that you acquired the knowledge along the way, but then they don't screen for that stuff. They just ask you, enough questions to feel comfortable taking your money. Honestly, that's what it is. Um, and so, speaking of money, the cost benefit analysis is in the black. That is absolutely false. You cannot say equivocally that that is true. In some cases, maybe it is, but in the vast majority, Pareto would tell you that there's no way that that's true. Because if it costs $30,000 to get a degree, you would have to see the benefit of $60,000 minus interest, right? We're not talking about interest. In increase in your salary or an increase in your job change, the salary between your previous job and your current job, and that's not a guarantee. You could spend 50 grand on a master's degree and never use it, or get fired. Like it's just not a guarantee. So if anybody tells you that, they're not giving you the whole truth. And I would be wary of anybody who doesn't give you both sides of this conversation. Most people that get degrees in IT at the grad school level, if you're not doing research or something, you're just getting it to have it. Like it's not required for your job. In very, very rare cases, like if you're a GS at a government or something like that, then maybe they're going to tell you, well, if you want to get to GS whatever number, then you have to have a master's degree. Sure, go for it if that's what you want to do. but a career switcher or somebody getting started is certainly not in that position. The other thing is cloud. Um, this is absolutely not true. Cloud is absolutely required and it should be in all the curriculum, and it's not. It's in none of it. They talk about it, they tell you how great it is, but they do not teach it. You'll never learn how to create an account and do security on the cloud and SSH into a cloud server, or how data migrations work. And if you have a graduate level IT degree, you're going to be expected to know how to do data migrations or disaster recovery or to set up high availability or to have any conversation with that. And since a huge number of jobs out there right now are all hosted in the cloud, if you don't know cloud, you're not going to get through interview one. You're not even going to get invited to interview one. And the fact that it's not covered in the curriculum just goes to show you that the curriculum is so far out of touch with the needs of the market, and it's more in touch with what they can sell and accredit, without seeming like they're watering down education. And that's just one person's opinion, right? That's just my opinion. But as far as I've seen, like if education is hired as a business and they can prey on you and have the government pay for it, and then you just pay the government back later, the school doesn't care. They get their money. All they need to do is meet the requirements to make sure that they can keep doing that. And those requirements come in the form of accreditation. And accreditation just has certain requirements for different kinds of programs, and they don't really care whether or not your degree is going to make you marketable or help you learn the most relevant skills, which is why Linux and networking and cloud and none of this is part of any of the curriculum. And it actually should be, and it's a crime that it's not. So now what do you do? I'm gonna make another video. If you're sitting there going, well, I was going to go to school, but now you just told me all the reasons not to. Hey, if you want to go to school, like, you do you. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you things I've heard that aren't necessarily true. Okay. I still think there's value in getting a college degree. I still think there's value in going to grad school. It's just very situational. It depends on why you're doing it. If you want to do it because it's your personal goal and you got the money to do it, go for it. If you want to do it because you want to go into research, go for it. If you're currently working somewhere and they require a master's degree to get promotion, go for it. If you're a career switcher, a new person trying to get an entry level job, I do not think at all that this is a good idea. If you're stuck in a help desk and you want to try to differentiate yourself, I do not think that's a good idea. But I will tell you what's a good idea in my next video. So take a look at that and hopefully that will help. If you have any questions, just leave it in the comments below. If you disagree with me, that's fine. I'm not saying I'm perfect or that I'm always right. This is just based on my experience. So keep it positive, and I'll see you in the next one.